Good evening. So, there's a thing going around, the frequently asked beer questions, and a couple of friends have tagged me in it, and I decided to bite because I do love me a good questionnaire. So, I may or may not remember to tag friends at the end, but also I kind of believe, like, do you? Like, if you want to answer the questions, go for it. Okay. So, somebody made a questionnaire, a list of questions that they get asked a lot on their channel or about their videos, and so now everybody's tagging each other in them and answering the questions. You get to know a little bit about the person doing the channel. Some of the people that they do work with. Often I've seen a lot of people tagging other beer reviewers that they do a lot of reviews with, which is pretty cool. So you get to learn about some other reviewers. So here we go. 9 questions, and we'll dive right in. How did you get into beer geeking and why beer? So I don't even know. I feel like I'll be here forever if I answer these questions like with the full backstory. Maybe there's some fast ones. Let me see here. A long time ago, when I was a kid, by kid I mean a teenager, I drank whatever beer people gave me because I couldn't buy it. And so I drank a lot of really bad beer, not good beer, I don't know, malt liquor. And so I had like Mickey's and Old English 800 oldie, and I had King Cobra. I mean, things that came in 40s, basically. Really the point was little money, lots of drink. So that was really how I started drinking beer. When I was 18, my friend's mom gave me a 6-pack of Budweiser that was warm, and I literally carried it around all day and drank it, BYOB. It was warm, it was Budweiser, it wasn't really great. And then I got into Kirin Ichiban for a while because I was like, oh, this is interesting, and I don't remember what I liked about it necessarily at the time because I really don't like lagers now, but I think it was the best beer that I had available to me, and so that's what I would drink pretty regularly. And then for a long time, I was just like, I don't like beer. Why am I even drinking this stuff? It's awful. And so I avoided it. I spent a lot of time drinking cocktails. Cocktails are great. Wine. I got into wine a lot, and I would go to a lot of wineries and do like blind wine tasting parties. I would save the labels from the wine bottles and like categorize what I thought about all the flavors and things like that. So I'm kind of a data geek, and so I like to do analysis of things and then kind of look back on it later and have a record. I guess, it's like my binder of things that I've had to drink. I don't know. Anyway, data geek, like I said. So then I was out. I mean, fast forward, 15 years or something. I was out of work, so I drank beer casually. I liked beer a lot. I liked talking about it. I liked drinking different types. I liked craft beer a lot. I was out of work for a disability leave of absence, and so I had a lot of time on my hands. And I was trying to figure out, like, what am I going to do with my life? And decided that I could brew beer, that I could get the Cicerone certification, like as an expert on beer. That would be a new career for me. It takes a little bit less thinking than, and that sounds really awful, but it's less brain intensive ultimately, I suppose, than programming right now, because I write databases, I make databases. So I thought I would find that easier. It would be maybe more fun, less like hectic, less crunch time career situation. So I challenged myself to get the Cicerone certification. I could help new companies, new restaurants open, write their beer menus and pair foods and things like that. And that would be fun and entertaining and a fun thing to do. Also, brewing beer is great, but we'll get to that later. Anyway, so that's what I did, and I looked at the Cicerone study materials. A lot of it involves like knowing a lot of information about a whole bunch of different beer styles, and they kind of break it down by category. So you have to know American style, current and historical. You have to know like some English style beers. You need to know German style beers, or French Belgian style beers. You need to know some history, you need to know about the brew process, all of this stuff. So I thought, the way to tackle the data about beer styles really is to experience them in, myself and have an opinion about them, having tried them and having tried many types of beers in a different style and kind of getting a feel for how the market is and what's out there. So that's how that started. And so that's how my channel started. I thought, well, here I am going through this very subjective list, and I actually had the BJCP beer judge program sheet with me when I started. I would write it all out and make sure that I was following those, and then and I had for a while the printed booklet that I was using to compare each of the styles, each of the beers that I was drinking against the style, and then I started to have enough kind of working knowledge that I didn't have to be as particular about following the style guidelines. I have experienced them enough that I knew it more or less, but you'll see me sometimes, I'll refer to on my phone, I guess it doesn't show up really good. Anyway, I have a whole row and a half of beer apps, one of which is the BJCP Style Guidelines Beer Judge Style Guide, and I use that a lot if there's something that I'm not familiar with or if I have a question about it. It gets really granular about the details they're expecting for these styles, down to the SRM, the color that these beers are, the range for alcohol, the range for bitterness, etc. And so it's a really technical skill set to have. Like, you have to have very intimate knowledge of the beer and a lot of memorization of what's happening and a lot of experience in the industry. And so it's kind of a rabbit hole, and I got into it. And I guess that kind of answers the how and the why the beer specifically. So question number 2, what's my favorite beer? Now, that is not a question that I can answer. I suppose the beer that I buy and or drink most often is Guinness. And Guinness, people love it and people hate it. People love to hate it. Guinness to me is like just a real good go-to beer. I like that style a lot. I like that flavor a lot. I really like nitrous beers a lot. And so if there's if they have one nitro beer on tap and they don't necessarily know what nitro is, it might be Guinness, and so I'll drink that. That's my go-to. But I also feel like seasons affect how I drink beers, partially now because the market really pushes to have like a seasonal beer, so people are constantly buying things. And so somewhat my ability to drink beer is based on that. Ability to find beer is based on that. But in the summer, I really like 21st Amendment's Heller High Watermelon. I think it's a really great wheat-style beer, which isn't necessarily my favorite style. But like the really kind of soft, subtle, and not sweet watermelon is really great. It's really great in hot weather. I like it a lot. I'll drink it with a wedge. I'll drink it like with a whole glass full of watermelon. I can drink it by the pool because it always comes in cans. I don't even have any pool anymore, so that's kind of sad. But it's really a great go-to beer. I feel like also a lot of people that I introduce it to like it a lot, so it's a great beer to have for me to have on hand. And my favorite style, I think, of beer, which is easier to answer, really is malty beers, which is somewhat generic. I really like Scotch ales, brown ales, porters, stouts, although sometimes stouts are a little too bitter for my liking. Like, they get into that kind of roasty coffee French roast flavor, acrid, and that's a little too much for me. Right now, the trend is that everything is imperial and or oaked, like stored in barrels, and that's a little too intense for me too. I'm hoping now that spring is happening, we'll kind of get away from that really heavy beer flavor. Also, I feel like those beers should be cellared to kind of soften those flavors a little bit more, but between me and you, I don't cellar beer very well. I end up drinking it. So That's my favorite beer. So if I had one beer forever, what would it be? Oh, that would be super sad, you guys. I don't want to drink one beer forever. You know, if you drink anything too much, if you do anything too much, it just sucks after a while. You know, like as a kid, you ate too many peanut butter and jelly sandwiches, and now you can't eat them at all. Or is that just me? Um, One beer. I guess Guinness, but I would super be sad about that after a while. Like I just wouldn't want to drink it anymore. Four, how can you drink so much? And it's kind of a two-part question. How do you stay healthy? That's a loaded question. So, how can you drink so much? Now, I suppose that all things are relative. I don't drink enough that my doctors are alarmed when I write it in my questionnaire, my health questionnaires to them. So I feel like so much is, is suggesting that it's too much. Also, you don't have to drink the whole bottle. Sometimes I'll have a beer and not like it, and I won't finish it after I've done a review. Sometimes I have so much beer stacked up in my fridge to review, like on deck if I'm out and shopping and I find it, that I don't have room for food. And so I'll do like five videos, boom, 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 boom. And I just open these beers, do a taster, do a video. Oftentimes I use tiny little glasses, 4-ounce taster glasses, and I may or not finish those 4-ounce glasses, and then I'll do tasters that way. And often, more often than often, I will pour a beer, like out of a 22-ounce bottle like this, do a review of it, drink about half of it during the review, refill it, sit on the couch to watch Netflix, and fall asleep. So that's the secret. I don't necessarily drink that much beer. Although I do have times and places for heavy beer drinking. How do you stay healthy? Loaded question. Do you want to talk about health? I don't know that you do. Anyway, I have a chronic illness. My healthiness level is questionable already as it is. And so, I don't necessarily stay healthy regardless of whether or not I'm drinking beer. So there's that. However, drinking beer, getting out, like having beer reviews, having beer review buddies that we do these, meetups with, and we talk about beer together, and going out to local breweries and trying them gets me out of the house, which is, useful. It's nice to have a social activity. I know a lot of the breweries around here, the gals, families that own these breweries, and they're all very nice people. So socially and mental health wise, it's good to get out and go out and experience local communities. So I vote that as a healthy thing. Are you an alcoholic? I feel like that's the same question. How do you drink so much? So like I said, for question number 4, my doctors are not alarmed when I tell them how much I drink, and I have to be pretty honest in my disclosure because they often prescribe me medications that may or may not interact with alcohol, and I have to be very mindful about whether or not I'm going to stop breathing on the couch when I fall asleep. So I think we're cool. Thanks for asking. Number 6, what's your favorite ingredient? That's a weird question. I feel like, beer has water and hops and malt and yeast. And then usually sugar to prime that yeast. And aside from that, you really don't need to add anything to beer. The rest are just extras. I don't know. So I guess I'm into malts. I like hops a lot, though. I don't know. How do I answer that question? Water is life. As far as like flavored beers, maybe that's the question that's being asked. I don't really like flavored beers. And then here I am saying that I really like Hell or High Watermelon. Sometimes it's good. It has a place. But ultimately, if I'm looking at beers and they're like, oh, this one has apricot. Oh, this one has tangerine. Oh, this one has vanilla. I'm probably going to be like, can I just have a beer? I just want a regular beer. So there are my thoughts on that. I don't know. Do you brew? Number 7. Yes, I do. I have a lot. 4, actually they're not all full, but 4 boxes of 22-ounce bottles, about 3/4 or so of which are still full of beer. I feel like at this point some of them can just be dumped because they're getting old. Some are super foamy because I don't know what happened to my October batch, and probably don't need to be consumed either. So yeah, I definitely brew. I actually have the ingredients to do a hazelnut chocolate porter, kind of like the Heretic hazelnut chocolate porter, on my, whatever that is, counter. But I left the yeast out overnight, so I feel like I need to get a new yeast packet, just so it's properly healthy. And I feel like, oh, and then I need like a day. It takes almost like a day, maybe a half a day, to do a good brew. And I've been super busy all of the weekends with things involving getting my house moved into, which I have to admit has been since August, and it's freaking April, you guys. Anyway, so yeah, I brew beer. What was my first beer? I feel like I answered that in number one. It was some variation on cheap malt liquor in a 40-ounce bottle. Like I said, we had Mickey's, Wide Mouth. We had, Crooked Eye, St. Ives Crooked Eye. We had, I don't know, one of those beers. We drank a lot of Oldie because that was in rap songs, and then so that was popular in the community that I grew up in. So probably those. I don't think I snuck a beer from a family member. No, I do remember actually. I'm pretty sure I remember, and I could be remembering incorrectly, but I might have had a sip of my grandpa's Coors. He drank Coors when I was a kid, and I remember he would finish it, and I would go crush the glass. No, not the glass. What is that thing? I would crush the can in the garage. He had a can crusher thing, and then put it in the recycling, and they would bring it to recycle or whatever. So maybe Coors was my first beer. I don't know. Who in the beer world do you look up to? So that's a great question. I have a couple of different answers to that question. I feel like I really admire what the Pink Boot Society is doing. So Pink Boot Society is a club or a group of women that are in the brewing business, and so to join the club, you have to be in the beer industry. You have to be working in the beer industry. So there are brewers, people who work for beer companies as distributors and marketing and things like that. On brew day, it gets messy, especially if you're brewing big batches like in a warehouse with the big, huge fermenters. And so you oftentimes wear boots or galoshes. And so the Pink Boot Society, they have pictures of themselves, and they all have pink rain boots, and it's kind of cute. They've been doing a lot of collaborative brewing projects. I've seen several out of the Bay Area, and I'm a member of their Facebook group online, and I'm watching what they're doing. And so they've done a lot of collaborative brews where they're working with, and I can't think of the names of any of the breweries right now, unfortunately, off the top of my head. But they're working with local breweries such as 21st Amendment, and to make some kind of a recipe and to brew collaboratively with that brewery. And so then they market the beer, and it gets more women interested in the industry, and kind of showcases some interesting new things that can be done with beer. They try interesting recipes. I think they've done recipes even with, maybe I'm misspeaking, so fact check me, I guess, with Rare Barrel, who is exclusively a sour beer brewery in Berkeley, and so they're trendy with the styles, and the flavors that people are wanting, and they're ending up in really cool places to drink beer, like Beer Hall, and I think that's really cool. I'm really enjoying the small craft companies that are opening, that are family owned or community minded. I think that's really great. And so there's a couple of places locally that are like that. I feel like Farm Creek here in my own city of Walnut Creek is really great for that. Small local business, local family that lives in Walnut Creek. Their son goes to school with my son, which is super cool. And so it's great to see their business thrive and for them to put out a really great product. I met with the people over at Ale Industries who used to be in Concord, the city next to me, but now they're out in Oakland, California. Nice people, really doing some great projects. They're partnering with businesses locally that are, kind of as a community support thing. So when they have coffee beers, they use the coffee roaster that happened to open up next to them. They use local Oakland-based chocolate companies for the chocolates that go in their beer. I think that's super cool. And I'm enjoying that a lot. Alameda Island, they're a really great company. It's two brothers and their wives that own the company. And that's really cool, I think. Small small family-owned businesses, and they put out some really great beer. There's the Homebrew Network, or the, what is it called? Hop Grenade. I don't think it's the Homebrew Network. Actually, it might be the Homebrew Network. I can't even remember. I have a sweatshirt that says it, and I can't remember what it says. Oh, anyway, they're cool. They have like a beer radio station podcast thing that they do, and they publish videos to teach homebrewers. I think that's pretty cool. So I'm enjoying those things. On a smaller scale, I think the beer review community is really a great group of people. I think that it's been a great way for people to meet each other and kind of talk and BS and enjoy something that they have in common when they live in disparate areas. So I've met people from Michigan, from Louisiana, from Mississippi, from Alabama, from everywhere, and that's been really great. And so those people, we have a common interest in beer, either for drinking and or reviewing it together. And for that time, we set aside whatever differences we might have socially or economically or racially or what have you, and we can enjoy a beer together. Oftentimes we're laughing about things, making jokes with each other, and I appreciate that a lot. So many of them have become people that I would count as friends of mine. So I think those are the probably important people that I look up to in the beer world. So I think they meant to have a question 10th, maybe not a question, but like to shout out and invite some other people to answer these questions. I think I was tagged by both Rod J with Rod J Beer Ventures, and then So Fucking Drunk out of the UK. I think he's, is he in Scotland? I think he's in Scotland because I think he's given me shit about, no, maybe he's in Ireland. Anyway, about Scotch ale not really being a thing, in the way that Americans always talk about Scotch ale. But anyway, and I think somebody else had asked me to do it as well. But I really have a shitty memory, so I'm sorry about that. So people that I would like to see it, I think it would be cool. Let's see, I know that Jay has done it. I would like All Things 510 to do this, and I might even have to look on his channel and see if he hasn't done it already. So All Things, and I'm sorry I don't know your actual name, does reviews out of Oakland, and so we're somewhat in the same circles in the beer world, and I've seen him do a lot of reviews of places that I've gone to and that I've really enjoyed, and I appreciate watching his reviews and hearing his opinion on those things. So I invite All Things 510. And then I don't think Jean has done a video yet. So Jean-Pierre, you need to do a video, I think, of beer facts. Who else? Eric the Lions fan, you should do it. And then poorly reviewed beers, I think. So I'll try to remember that I said your names, and I'll tag you in the video below, I guess, if that's how it works. But I have a really shitty memory, and I might forget what I said by the time I stop this video and get it processed. So anyway, Also, those are some of my beer friends. Check out their channels. So cool. And to everybody who has welcomed me into the beer community that I count as friends, or you know, the people who watch my videos, I appreciate you. I love it when you comment, and I love it when you suggest beers. I've found some of them, and they have indeed been very tasty, so thank you for that. So there you go. My, what is this? FABQ. Thanks for watching. Have a good night.